Hello, my name is Neil Amy. Welcome to another Rayobyte story. In today's episode, I have the super awesome Kirstin Barth. Kirstin is from South Africa, and to put it simply, Kirstin's trying to end unemployment. In South Africa, the unemployment rate is 32%. 32%, as compared to the relative unemployment rate of around 3% in the US. And she's doing this all by the power of data. So in today's episode, we'll be talking about how she's helping people go from learning to earning. Thanks for joining us. Okay, here we are. Hi, everybody. Here
Hi,
I
Neil.
am with Kirstin Barth. Kirstin, please tell the audience what you're about and what you're doing.
Okay, so we're a very small company. Currently, we only have two permanent employees, but we do expand as and when we get contracts. Sorry, and that's my cat jumping up. We get contracts. We then bring in, both of us have been in the skills education and training and skills development sector for 6 decades in total. So we have an extensive network of people who can assist us. And so as and when we get contracts, we tend to pull in the subject matter experts and educational experts to come and help us. So that's the core focus of the company. Of course, I'm actually more on the analytics side. So my experience in the sector has been more about data. I've got a lot of experience with managing national data sets in South Africa around education. And so it has always confounded me how people make decisions around education and training without looking at, really looking at what the market actually says. And so given that we're doing things like workplace readiness programs and skills development, it just seemed natural for us to need to find a data source that would properly enlighten us in terms of what is happening, whether it's in an industry, whether it's in a province within our country, to get a real feel of what's going on before we start developing materials and stuff like that.
Awesome, Kirstin. And I, for those just tuning in, Kirstin and I had a chance to chat before we started recording and some emails. So let me backtrack us and do my part to kind of intro this. And I'm going to read from a document about your company, Jobtrend.za, and the first sentences captivate me. Here it is. It says, skill development and unemployment are deeply interconnected, with the significant cause of unemployment in South Africa stemming from the mismatch between employer needs and individual skill sets, particularly in technical competencies falling short of employer expectations. While education provides a foundation, skill development is essential to bridge this gap and effectively address unemployment, provided identified disconnects between skills development and joblessness are resolved. And when I read that, where I jump to immediately, I just go, wow, you're solving unemployment. I mean, it's a one sentence. It's a one sentence catch-all that says what you're trying to do is identify, help with data. This is my interpretation, so please correct it. You're taking the data and you're helping employers and I guess educators as well too understand this gap, and at the end of the road, with this knowledge in their hands, unemployment will ultimately get solved. I mean, am I summarizing this? It's awesome.
So I mean, so unemployment in South Africa, I mean, it has many different contributors to it. And so we're looking at one specific aspect. And so to give you a little bit of context in terms of what happens in South Africa, we're different from the UK, for example. Our education is very vocationally based. So already when you're in secondary education, you're being pushed into a pathway of, you're an accounting type of person, so the subjects you follow are accounting based, you're a scientific. And so you almost from secondary school level onwards, you are almost already guided into your occupation field. And then once you get into university, our university degrees or whether it is our TVET college degrees, they are all very vocationally focused. So when you're done, if the market is not ready for you, or if there's no space for you, you're pretty
Yeah.
pissed to put it, you've got a problem at that
Yeah.
point. So
Yeah.
so that's your one issue. The other issue is that the majority of our employees are SMMEs. And so
Hmm.
they don't have the luxury. If I think about, I mean, for example, I know somebody who used to work at HSBC, came from South Africa, went to the UK,
Hmm.
and they went through a massive or a long extended onboarding process where you go through each department in the organization, you figure out what you like, they figure out where they like you, and then eventually you're employed as a financial advisor or whatever.
Yeah.
And so our SMEs don't have the time for that, right? Also, most of our students come from incredibly impoverished backgrounds. So you want to get them from
Hmm.
learning to earning in the shortest time possible. So even
Yeah.
if I've got my occupation correct, even if the school pegged me well, I got into university for the correct reasons, went for the correct qualification, and I come out, there's also the aspect of, so I've got this academic background. Now I need to learn how to practically implement that
Yeah.
knowledge.
Right. Right.
And so that is what we are all about, is trying to get our students from learning to earning as quickly as possible, and doing it aligned to what companies actually want or need. In terms of how we look, and that is our specific focus. But when I look at the data and I think about South Africa, my problem is I needed to go try and find this data, right? And I couldn't.
Yeah.
I've got
Ah.
some state resources, very clunky, usually retrospective, so not very in touch with what's happening currently. Of course, our job listing companies also do reports, but they tend to focus, and they're also protective, right? So if
Mhm.
something's
Like
failing, they
Indeed, like Indeed or
exactly
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn
Yeah,
and
tell
stuff
me
like
tell me
that.
about that. Tell me how you differentiate between those obvious job listing websites.
So we do all of them. We do as many of them as we can, and we've started with
Mm.
what we use most in our country, and the solution is very country orientated. I mean,
Mhm.
I've worked with enough of our data to know that a lot of the things that happen in our country are very specific to our country. So it's which job listing companies are our people using, and going to them, and then trying to get the data. And we'll talk about how
Yeah.
we get that later on.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
please.
so the problem is firstly, like, if you think about LinkedIn, I mean, they're a huge company. They've got the whole world on their doorstep, right? They
Yeah.
don't care about South Africa and trying to figure out
Yeah. Learn
provinces
to
and
earn.
industries.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
they
Yeah,
don't
right.
give, they'll report what they think is interesting. And the same, even with our internal one, our national job listing companies, they will find a point of interest and publish to that, and publish to it in PDF format. And so if you actually had a different requirement, if you were in a different sector, if you're in a different province, or you're interested about a different occupation, you don't have access to that data. So the idea for us was,
Mm.
once we were collecting the data, is like, well, we've got this data store now. Let's get it out to the public free of charge, and allow them a BI interface in which they can drill down, and whatever your needs are, whether you're a job seeker, whether you're a guidance counselor, whether you are a educationist who's trying to make decisions, even a policymaker, you are able to drill down into that data, whether it's location, employment type, whatever it's, any data I've got available, make it available so that you can actually look at it yourself. So that's the freebie, that's the
Awesome.
WinZips.
Yeah.
I'm an oldie, right? I'm graybeard. So in my days, we got WinZip for free, That's the WinZip
Yes.
from
Sure.
Kululeko.
Tell me about your background. It's clear you have an interest in data and some of our communications. I was picking up on it, but I don't know much. Tell me, and tell everyone. How did you get
Um,
to this point in this background?
sh- sure. So firstly, like graybeard, so it's a long story. I mean, I used to work for the Human Sciences Research Council. They actually, and in those days, it was large flat files, right?
Uh huh.
And
Uh huh.
they would go out and do basically human sciences surveys. I got in on the education level at that stage. It was on school surveys. This is just post democracy, where, I mean, when I first got introduced to data, South Africa still used to store school lists in 4 different files, because we still used to think of white people, black people, colored people, and Indian people. And it was just made no sense, right? Just maintaining 3 different data sets, type of 4 different data sets.
Yeah,
And
right.
so I have progressed with time through. I've always been very much in the education sector, have worked with our largest education databases. And so that I will always have a passion for finding actionable data that can impact the socioeconomic status of people in our country. And education, we know, is one of the pillars of all of that.
And that leads me into the most exciting question I'm burning to know is why do you do this, and what gets you up in the morning to solve the socioeconomical issues that you're seeing with unemployment and the learn to earn? I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful, and I want to hear what gets you excited.
Yeah. So I mean, firstly, I think things in the country currently are quite dire, and seeing how people suffer, are not able to find jobs. Like I said, the unemployment rate is really high. Also, whenever I've interacted with our youth, these guys have so much potential, right? You just need to give them a chance. They just need to get going. And if
Oh, I
I
love
can
that.
facilitate that, it's just like when I used to work in companies, one of the most exciting things for me always was doing internships and things like that, where you just give to this. It's a new person. They're coming in, they know nothing, and just like completely building them up. And they leave you at the end of it, right? Because I mean, they're ready to fly, and then they fly, and it's like you've contributed to somebody's pathway through their life in a meaningful way. And so anything for me that gives light to a situation where somebody, a decision maker, can make a better decision, and whether it's the smallest person, whether it's the job seeker or the career guidance counselor, or if it's a state arm that is looking at the data and saying, oh shucks, we need to make this kind of change, then my day's done, right? Then I'm happy.
Amazing. Do you have something did you have perhaps a mentor or a resource of some kind in your growing up that you remember that maybe
Oh,
pulls into?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, look,
Tell me about that.
yeah. From my first job, I mean, I've only had the most exceptional mentors that have, and I think that, they have only given me dignity and respect and taught me. And generally, when I was busy learning, the people that were teaching me were open and free with knowledge and information and gave it willingly. And it's something that I've always kept close to me. I've always felt that if I do the same to other people, they will pay it forward, and they generally do. So I've been very lucky to have very concrete mentors in the education sector who have helped me through my career.
Do you have partners? Do you have people working with you to make this idea come to life?
Technically, right now, I'm still leaning on goodwill from people. People that I know. I've got I've got a network of people that can help me. I've got family members that help me. And then, of course, if we get a contract, then it's hardcore. Then it's like, now we need to get people in. We need to meet the client's needs, and then we bring people in for money. So I do have a support system around me that can help me the whole time.
Good. Yeah. Well, speaking of support structure, I'd be curious to hear how Rayobyte, our company, has helped you with this data collection. Tell me how you go about and think about data collection, how our products have been a part of that.
Okay, so where I came from, data was, I mean, I've been working in state arms and very structured environments where the data is there, right? It's collected. And so here I've got a problem. I want this data, I can't get it. And it didn't take long to realize that, people are protective of their data, even though I'm not collecting any personal information. I'm very mindful of the GDPR, I think it is what you would know it, but we call it the POPI Act in South Africa. And we've got our own version. And then the issue is, and I understand for a business, it's like, this is my core business, but once it's become legacy data, once a job posting has expired, it's useless, right? For anything
Yeah,
other
right.
than trending, right? For getting trends and
Right.
stuff like that. But so I'm not able to get through to anybody to say, look, could you give me your data? And so I had to turn to
Yeah.
scraping. Have never done scraping before.
Okay.
And it was a beautifully
Are you
interesting.
doing it? Are you
I
doing
do
it,
it.
or is it you're doing it? Okay. Wow. So
I do.
you're a programmer as well.
I am. So I'm actually a database person, and I did an
Yeah.
MIT short course last year on data science. So
Yeah.
I'm very much elbows in. You get to do the work, and so
Awesome.
yeah,
What language? I'm
Python,
curious. Python.
Python.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100% Python.
Yeah. Something like beautiful soup, or
um,
for the parsing, or
so I do Scrapey for some of the websites if I
Scrapey.
can
Yeah.
get away
Sure.
with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and otherwise
Yeah.
Selenium is what I use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay.
Uh,
Amazing.
So I mean, it was like I kind of like felt like I'd gone into the dark web because it was like, okay, I need to get data,
Yeah.
but they they
Yeah.
they shouldn't know I'm getting data. And then I was
Yeah.
like,
Right.
I wonder if someone, I come from the dawn of Google where it was like, if you're having a problem, Google it because for sure somebody else has had this problem.
Yeah. Right.
And so kind of
Right.
when I stumbled on Scrapey, I kind of heard about their services. There seems to be like a relationship.
Yeah.
Wasn't quite happy with their services, and so kind of like, went into the underbelly and tried to find people that can help me basically make me anonymous. And where, I eventually stumbled onto Rayobyte, and the things that really pulled me initially was, firstly, the freebie is always an important thing, right? You need to
Yeah.
test
And I
something.
hear it. You're doing the same too with your. So that's
Yeah,
awesome. That you're
exactly.
resonant. I feel the same way. That if we
Yeah.
can give something out for free to help somebody get going, then why not? Come on. There's
No,
no reason
and
to gatekeep.
it's proof of concept, right? And so once I could get
Exactly.
the proof of concept, it was like, and so this would have been last year at some time. It's like, and so I'm not sure if this is going to work. Will I be able
Yeah.
to scrape the data continuously? And so the commitment to a long-term contract, saying, well, for a year,
Yeah.
$100 a
Right.
month, was just
Yeah.
like, it
Right.
was no,
Yeah.
was
Right.
not
Right.
working for me. And also, I mean, if you also just, Neil, so that if you look at some of the other places, they're like in per request, whereas the Rayobyte offering was
Hmm.
per megabyte, right? So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
I'm paying for data. I'm not paying for fluffed calls to a website. And I mean,
Yeah.
even the per request, it's like so if you think about it, for me, it's like in LinkedIn, we're looking at 30K jobs in a month, right?
Yeah.
And if you
Right.
start then saying to me per job, which I've got to get one by one. And then you
Right.
start saying to me, like, even if you say like 10 cents, this stuff adds up. I want to scrape as many sites as possible.
Right.
And then add the dollar to rand exchange, right? And I'm just like,
Yeah.
hell,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could buy
Right.
a
Right.
house.
Right. 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 Right.
And so the kind of like the fact that you did the pay as you go had me
Yeah.
hooked because it's like, okay, I
Awesome.
don't have to commit if it doesn't work, and then I mean, like I say, the fact that you did megabytes instead of requests also is like, and then
Yeah.
I know how much data I'm getting. I can see how much data I'm getting. I can see what I'm paying for, type of thing.
Awesome.
And yeah, listen, your December special floored me, right? I was just like,
Oh,
ching ching.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
felt like I was
Oh,
it's just
great.
I bought one and then I was like, no, hang on, this is cheap enough. Let me buy
Yeah,
more and
might as
more.
well. Right. 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 Right.
And so
Oh, great.
I'm sitting pretty with it at this stage. I'm collecting my
Yeah.
data. The prototype seems to be working. I'm confident enough to go, public with the product by now.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
I'm actually starting to expand as well in terms of
Yeah.
scraping.
Yeah.
So
And so you mentioned 30,000. Maybe just kind of give the audience a general estimate, whatever you can share. How big is your data set? And is it just historical or is it real time? Just talk about maybe some of those mechanics.
So the data that I'm extracting, of course, is real time. So I'm
Yeah.
asking today, which jobs are you publishing? And I
Yeah.
pull those jobs. So I do this on a daily basis. This is basically also to make sure that I don't overwhelm the website, right? So
Uh-huh.
it is a smaller request to say, give me all your new jobs in a particular location today. And then it'll say,
Yeah.
okay, here we go. These are the jobs. I do it every day. I mean, in total, sure, and it's. I think I have already in the region of 200,000 legitimate jobs, right? And so for me, a legitimate job is I can track an employer profile. I've seen some strange stuff on these sites. Okay.
I bet. Share one of those.
Well,
Give one example.
The one site that I've got, like, the employer's not listed, and actually even not even the job content is listed, right? I've also seen other sites. It's like, today we've published 9,000 jobs, No, actually, I've already got 8,500 of those from a month ago, So there's obviously there's a level of like wizardry where they're like, they want to bulk up their figures.
Of course.
And so for me, really, a job, a legit job, it has a job description. Let's not. I mean, I don't want to hear about anything else. It's got to be like the job description doesn't have to be too big, but there must be a job description. And it must have an employer. And that is also important for me because I need to be able to eliminate duplication. Because I know that some companies may publish over multiple job listing sites. So I make sure. And so I would say in terms of clean data, I've got about 200,000. That is since November. Yeah.
And so maybe describe, so now that you have this data, you have 200,000 listings. And if I may pause for a second for in the audience who maybe not know as much about web scraping and what we're talking about, I'll just give a quick brief. So what Kirstin's doing is she goes to a web page as you would on your browser, or my browser in front of me here, and you see this job posting. You say, hey, title, some accounting professional for this company, employer, and then the job description. You see that on your screen. What web scraping is you use software to do that at scale. If Kirstin was having to go get 200,000 listings herself, it would take years to do that. So she's written software because she's awesome and has the software to do that in Python to get that at scale. And so she has 200,000 of these. So now, Kirstin, explain what comes next. You probably clean it, you store it in the database, and then what ultimately is the end view? You said it's some kind of business dashboard. Can you describe kind of maybe what that will look like to the end person who would be using your dashboard?
Okay, so in terms of, I mean, technically when I get the data, and I come from a lot of the work that I used to do is data warehousing. I do a very kind of like the raw data file. It's actually written down onto a CSV file. Those I also come from a heavily audited background, so those are saved on they are stored and they're stored forever. So if, for example, I lose the whole data warehouse, I can always just rebuild everything from scratch. The data is then loaded into a SQL database, into a staging table, and there's the rudimentary cleaning of it at that point. So now I'm passing a text file into a table. Yes, I use relational database design, and I get it into the most rudimentary table that there's three large elements around this kind of scraping. The one is the job listing, the other is the content of the job, and the third is the employer's details. And so I splice and dice the data into those three different tables. And this is the duplicated data, or there's a possibility of duplication. This also doesn't, unlike other environments, nobody follows a standard. So one person will say company size 1 to 10, another company will say company size 1 to 20, so you got all this data that doesn't really match up with each other. It is saved as that. And it is then when I come to the reporting level where I then do and we use a little bit of machine learning in this as well.
Oh, amazing.
I learned so much doing this, right?
Incredible.
So it's like so for example, my biggest challenge was getting, we've got all these job titles, but I want to have them standardized. So I leaned on the United States SOC codes, standard occupation codes, and then saying, okay, so, and this got really complicated, for example, because it's like, you got the SOC code, you got a job title. And one doesn't match the other, right?
Right. Job titles can be anything.
Yeah, exactly, right. And then you've got to go deeper, and you've got to say, okay, let's look at the job description. They must be describing tasks and responsibilities. And a SOC,
Mm-hmm.
an occupation, generally has a description of the occupation's
Uh-huh. Right.
tasks and things. And then bringing machine language in and saying, okay, so you've got this text that describes a job and you've got this text that describes an occupation. Pull me up a probability
Mm-hmm.
to say which is closest enough. And I've had to
Yeah.
use that kind of machine learning in a number of things. So the idea then is I start to prepare this data for reporting purposes. And yes, it is for the freebie, the Jobtrend.za report, but it is also for our internal. I need to be
Mm-hmm.
able to accurately, if somebody picks up the phone and says, Kirstin, I want to understand, what are the trends for data scientists in South Africa by province, by employer type, blah, 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 blah. I need to be
Yeah.
able to get
Right.
into that data and pull that. And so I standardize that data into a data set that we are able to use internally, and that as a offshoot of that, I am able to publish this free data for anybody to use who wants to take a look at it.
Who will be a typical user of this data?
So, and everyone asks me this, and so
Uh-huh.
my hope and dream is that the vast majority of users are job seekers and or people who are
Mm-hmm.
school leavers. So
Yeah.
I would like to put that kind of data into the hands of people who are on the way to making a decision about training or education. So that
Yeah.
at the very minimum, they can take a look and say, well, gosh, this is popping. This occupation is starting to
Yeah.
trend, and maybe I should study that. And so I'll give you an example. I mean, a lot of us are unemployed, are highly qualified. So they are educated. They have
Yeah.
degrees and they are sitting in their townships and they are not able to find jobs because fundamentally they get into the market and it's like, oh, wow, another psychologist. No, we don't have a job for you. That kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So if I'm
It's
able to assist anybody, if just seeing the data allows that to happen, then I'm
right.
happy.
Yeah.
In terms of other users that we expect, I am hopeful that career guidance, anybody in the school environment, anybody who's trying to guide people in terms of making a better decision. I do know that there are professional bodies and that there are state stakeholders that would find this
Mm-hmm.
information very valuable as well, and possibly even researchers. But my main focus is the job seeker or the school leaver too. If they can
Yeah.
hit the site and they can find value from the data, then I'm very happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. And that reminds me, is your tagline the learn to earn as quickly as possible? I love
It's
that.
not.
Can it be?
I should
I
actually.
love that. It's
It is
incredible.
right. It is because shame, and I'm sure you felt it when you. Well, I don't know. I mean, when I left, my education was like and thunk, right? Like
Yeah.
you've got to get to the point where you're
Yeah.
earning money, and so
Yeah. Right.
that is what we want to do as quickly as possible. Get you
Yeah.
from the one point to the other.
Right. Amazing. Well, okay, Kirsten, we're getting towards the end here. Before we wrap up, I want to hear about your kite surfing. For those let me catch people up. Kirsten and I had an email exchange about our surfing, and when I said surfing, she said kite surfing. I was like, oh my gosh, that's another level in my opinion. That's much more difficult than just hopping on a board and letting it push you. So tell us about your kite surfing endeavors.
So first, I'm going to take you back a step because Neil, I live in South Africa and they have legalized the private growth of cannabis quite a while back,
Mm,
and
yeah,
so it is actually my main hobby, right? And so
is it?
when you
Yeah.
said, what are your hobbies? I was like, gosh, I don't know this guy. I don't know if I can write him.
I love that.
My deepest passion lies in growing the best strain, for the year.
Yeah. Oh, wow,
And so
cool.
I've been so happy to have kite surfing where I can now, when somebody, when I go into an interview or anything, somebody says, "What's
Yeah.
your hobby?" You're like, "Oh
Yeah.
no, kite surfing, right?"
There is no
Um,
judgment here. That's great. You could have shared that first
you're
one.
a
I live in the
surfer, right?
Netherlands, Kirsten.
I
So
know.
yeah, and
When you
I'm a
said you're
surfer.
from Amsterdam, I was like, "Oh gosh,
Yeah.
I could have told him
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
from Amsterdam."
Yeah.
And so it's an emerging hobby for me. It is just amazing. It is just the most amazing. I fall, I hurt myself, I'm stiff for weeks, I walk
Yeah.
funny. We've gone through 7 hours of classes. I've done face palms so bad that I can feel the heels hit the back of my head, right?
Oh my gosh,
Like,
cool. Yeah, right. What
um,
what about what about the great whites? Isn't South Africa known for?
oh, I must be honest with you. Every time one of the trainers takes me in, their first complaint is, "Oh, the water's so cold because the Cape Town water's so cold." I'm on such an
Yeah,
adrenaline rush. I don't feel nothing, right? I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
they're like, the
yeah,
water's cold there. I'm like, I feel
uh,
nothing. I've got a kite in
yeah,
my hands. That's it. Um,
yeah.
where I train is in Muizenberg, or where I get my classes. They have really good shark spotters out there. They sit way up
Uh-huh.
on a cliff and they can see the whole bay area. And I've actually
Oh,
seen
there's someone
photos.
that goes sits up
Yeah,
with like binoculars or something,
absolutely every
and they're
day.
just looking. Oh my
They're
gosh.
just and if you actually had to ever Google it, I'm pretty sure you'll see if you do Muizenberg shark spotting, they even take
Uh-huh.
photographs of these guys, and then but I mean the lifeguards know immediately. Of course, everybody gets.
Yeah.
But
Have you
we've
ever been
actually
out there when they've
no.
whistled? Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's interesting that you bring up the white sharks, the great whites, because we've actually had a decline in them, and we've actually
Hmm.
currently somebody's approaching our government. We've seen them fall massively, and we're not sure if it's something we're doing wrong or if it's something
Hmm.
outside of our coastline. So they've actually been very little. It used to, when I
Hmm.
initially moved down to Cape Town, December time period, it was like in at least once a day. Everybody ran off the
Yeah.
beach,
Oh my gosh.
Now, the last time I heard of a spotting in Muizenberg was actually, I think it was on the 1st or 2nd or 3rd of January. So last time
Yeah.
I heard of it then. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
no, the sharks ain't so bad,
No,
right?
okay, all right. Oh, thank goodness. I mean, it's ironic for most people that I enjoy surfing because I grew up in Nebraska, and for those who don't know the U.S., Nebraska is the state that's right in the very middle. So we're as far away from the ocean as possibly can be. But fell in love with it, and kite surfing's on my
Oh,
list. I got it's many people have hyped it up to me, so I haven't heard a bad thing about it. Let's say.
no, there's nothing bad about it. It's like
Yeah.
when you get no, it's awesome. The only thing you need to know is if you feel it pulling the kite pulling your center of gravity over your hips, let go the bar. You see, and the
Yeah.
face planting is when you don't let go
That's
the
it.
bar, and it's
Got it.
literally fell. And I turned around and I said to my instructor, I didn't let go the bar.
Yeah,
The minute
right,
you feel it,
right.
pull you too hard, and the rest of it is it's lovely. It's when that wind pulls you, and I haven't been on the water yet. The
Yeah,
last lesson I was actually in the water with a board on my feet, and I just about got myself up. And the power of that kite is just that with the
yeah.
ocean. That's just a magic combination.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, folks. Make sure you let go of your kite soon enough to avoid the face plant. Kirstin, thank you so much for coming
It's a
today.
pleasure.
Where can people follow along? Where would be a place if they're interested in your work and what you're doing?
So, and our website currently is being spruced up, but it's at kululeko.com. If you go there,
Yeah.
you're going to find everything eventually, even the Jobtrend.za report.
And
If
that's
you get
K, if I may spell that, it's
yes,
Kululeko, so
you,
KULEKO, Kulu
that's
Keiko.
it. Yeah.
Yes, yep, .com. Yep.
And
Thank you.
then even if you type in Jobtrend.za, Jobtrend, one word, ZA for South Africa.com, that will redirect you to our website as well. We've got a LinkedIn account will be shown, so you can join us on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in. Have a great rest of your
All
day.
right.
Thank you so much. Bye
Thanks,
bye.
Neil. You take care.